Hi, my name is Lacey Clark, and I am a student in the Economics for Business class at the William Woods University online program for my master's, and I am presenting a PowerPoint presentation on higher education and is it really worth it? In this PowerPoint presentation, I will be discussing is further education really worth the cost? In this PowerPoint presentation, I'll have information that I will provide for the overall concern of higher education and the costs associated with it. I will also provide information on the significance of the concern of the higher costs and the effects on our economy and the individual. I will also provide the pros and the cons of furthering your education. And then at the end, I'll go over the possible short-term and long-term solutions that I had found in research in order to support whether or not this is a high concern. The reason why I chose this topic is because I have a 4-year-old son that I'm wanting to prepare for in the future, because at one time I would like him to go to college. So this really gave me some good information and good feedback on how I can prepare and what would be the right thing to do in order to be able to plan for him. The uprising concern that we are discussing today, many people argue that furthering your education is worth the costs and the long-term debt, while others would say different. As costs increase for the future, higher education becomes extremely costly, and evidence shows that it is well worth it in the long run. McLean and Applegate argued that education is a major contributor to income of the individual graduate, and that studies based on growth explain that 15 to 20% of growth in the economy is due to all levels of educational advancement. Currently, there's 37 million Americans with student debt right now. So that is quite a large chunk of population that is in debt due to higher educational, whether they did pass or not at the time. Let's move on to the next slide. Average costs nowadays. So now that we've stated that as an overall concern of higher educational issues for the cost, we're going to say what all adds up to that. So average cost nowadays includes during the academic year of 2011, tuition and fees averaged around $8,244 for a public college year for a public college 4-year term. So then we have books and supplies averaged around $1,168. Transportation averaged around $1,082, and the actual opportunity cost of the student's time ranged from $15,000 to $25,000. After adding all these factors together, we can see that college is not cheap by any means, and McLean and Applegate from the text stated that the average cost for a public college term of 4 years averaged out to really be around $100,000 to $180,000. For a private school, it would average around $110,000 to $190,000 for the 4-year term. Even though the student has acquired this bill, if we think about it, they're really not the only person paying into it at this time or like after the term is over. It also ends up being the government support programs such as student loans, Stafford loans, financial aid, Pell Grant, so to say, and then a big part of the tuition fees that are getting paid back from the government, which in turn, the average day taxpayer is someone who actually pays into that as well. Go to the next slide. In this slide, we talk about how costs are continuing to increase for the future, and this actually shows an average of for the future. It presents that the rising cost of higher education based on 4 years of school. The private university averages out to be $3,994,719 in the year of 2027, and the public universities are 177,784 by 2027. In reviewing this graph, you can see that the predictions for private and public universities have doubled in cost by the year of 2027. And most economics expect that it will be an average of 6% increase every year up until then. This makes the cost of sending your newborn child to a 4-year college in 2007 being around the $177,000, which is quite a large amount from what we are paying to today, and a large amount to save for. In this next slide, I have where we talk about an actual another fact on the economy is the unemployment rate by educational attainment. Now, this one is a little harder to see, but if you look at the the blue is the less than high school diploma. So people who have a high school diploma or less, just have less than a high school diploma. The purple would be bachelor's degree, so bachelor's degree and above. And this graph ranges from January 1992 to January 2013. And this graph displays basically the unemployment rates and the correlation with educational levels up to the year of 2013. So it's quite a bit of evidence that supports the fact that the percentage rates, the unemployment percentage rates, are quite a bit higher for those that have less than a high school diploma. And so that means that there's a higher rate of unemployed with a lower educational level. And the purple, which has the lowest amount of unemployment percentage rates, are at the top of the list for having really the lowest unemployment rates. So that's what this graph is stating. So let's move on to the overall pros and cons of this topic. And so a lot of the things, the studies that I did, I'm just gonna kind of hit high level of what, and kind of explain just a little bit, touch base on each, on what pros, and then I'll go over the cons of what negatively happens when you don't have that higher educational level. For most people that graduate from college, they tend to make more money, which is obviously pretty obvious, are more productive as members of society. So some of the authors supported that when you have a high school or higher than a high school education, a college graduate, you care more about the community that you're living in, and you tend to give back more to it to help advance the area that you live in and that you choose to raise your family in. More college graduates have more employment opportunities. So if you had less than a high school diploma, there's a very minimal amount of jobs that you can get with a good income, either or, that you could get and maintain in order to support your family. But then when you have a higher educational level, there's a lot more opportunities, there's a lot more things open because many jobs require college degrees now. More likely to have health insurance and retirement plans. Most people that obtain a college education and finish it, obtain a career that ends up being a business that more than likely can support and help provide healthcare and retirement plans. And even if they don't provide them, you still have more of an annual income. That way you're able to invest in things like that. So then they end up having more opportunities with getting health insurance provided, and retirement plans for in the future. They develop interpersonal relationships. So a big part of college is interacting and building friendships and relationships and interpersonal skills by interacting with many, many different people and professors, students, faculty, on campuses, online, such. It's a way for people to build relationships and connect and learn how to become professionals in the adult world, basically. So that's a big part of that. Most people that are college graduates live healthier, longer lives, and that goes, I think, ties in a lot with the health insurance as well as the retirement plans, because when you have a higher level of income, when you have a higher level of education, you tend to spend more time or you have more money that you can spend on being preventative and staying healthy, like eating healthier foods, having money to like pay for a gym membership to go exercise, or being able to have those preventative doctor's appointments to where you can go and get checkups and make sure that you catch things early, as opposed to people that have a lower educational level, or one, even not educated enough about things, about health, as well as able to afford health care. And so that's a big deal right there with that. So some more cons are college graduates have healthier children. So not only do they live healthier, longer lives, the studies show their children tend to too, because they tend to get them the same type of preventative care. They're more educated about diseases and processes and such, to where they feel more informed about their care and what they can do about it, as well as they have the annual, like the actual income to help support and take care of things and eat healthier and exercise and things like that. College graduates' children are more apt to attend college themselves. So normally when they see their parents or their adult figures go to college, then more than likely they are more motivated to do the same thing and follow in the same footsteps as their parents, which then again also gives back to your community. College graduates are highly exposed to diversity. So this kind of ties in with interrelationships, building those skills and such. And you get to, when you attend college, many of us know that if you come from a very small town and you move to a college where there's a lot more of a diverse population, it has a strong effect on you, and I think it's a wonderful thing, because then it prepares you more for the adult world and getting a job and maintaining it in a career in an organization that has a diverse population. So it allows you to interact with many different cultures and nations, so that way you can really kind of broaden your horizon and see how people do things differently. So another pro is college graduates attract higher employers to their communities. So what they mean by this is that higher paying employers will come to their communities and build businesses and start jobs there because they have a higher educational level. If you come from a community that has higher education, that has a lot more population with a higher education, so then they will come there. They will build their organizations, they will employ more people because they see there's a high volume of that, which then once again gets back to your community. Another thing is that college graduates obtain more achievements throughout their lives. Once you've went to college and you've obtained a degree, I see a lot of people going back to school and getting a higher education level, like say masters, like what we're all doing now. Or they go for other things like that. They're highly motivated to win achievements when it comes to whether it be healthier lifestyles, maybe people like to go to do the Rugged Maniac or do different things in order to win achievements, or always reach for a higher level of obtaining something. College graduates basically have a higher return on investment. And when we talk about a return on investment, basically what they're seeing is that return on investment is really showing what they're going to get back in for the time that they put into it. So they get to see when they give so much time dedicated to going to school, what they do is then in return get an actual annual income or a lifetime of this much income for the time period that they will be working as the return on investment. So it's a very high return on investment when you look at an actual annual or say a lifetime span of income that you would be receiving by maintaining that getting that education and maintaining it and working. So now let's look at the cons. And if we were to look at the cons, these are just things that could be a negative for going back to college or going to college and getting a degree, but then some of it can also correlate with being a positive thing, is kind of what I thought, but this is what the studies show. So student loan debt is crippling on graduates. Well, of course it is. It is, like I mentioned before, there's 37 million Americans with student loan debt as of today, and many people avoid things like taking their milestones, as in like in the next tab we have loan debt often forces students to avoid adult milestones in their lives. Those milestones could be getting married, buying a house, buying a motor vehicle, you know, having many investments and ownership and things, but they have to wait on those due to the fact that their loan debt could be so high in order for them to be able to do those larger purchases at times. So then if you look, many college graduates are employed in jobs that do not require degrees. So what the research had stated is that there are people that have went through and had maintained or had obtained their college degree, but yet there wasn't a job open at the time that fit with that. So then they had to take basically go for a lesser job due to the fact that they didn't have anything open that fit with their requirements. So there are a high level of those currently right now. Many are still unemployed. So not only do some of them have let's see here. Not only do some of them have a job that they're employed in that does not require a degree, some of them even have their degrees and still do not have a job overall. And so some of the research shows that according to statistics, nearly 1/3 of students that start college actually finish it. Some authors stated that there will be 2.8 million millennials hitting the workforce with bachelor's, master's, and other degrees that will not be able to find a job right away. They also claim that in May, the data shows that 13.8% of 18 to 29-year-olds are out of work at that time. So that just gives you a bit of supportive information that talks about there's a small percentage that still are unemployed or still have a degree they're not using at this time. Many do not graduate. Many that do not graduate waste their money. So what happens is that if they're wasting money because they're investing in something that they did not complete, then they're not going to have the actual return on investment like I had mentioned before, because they're not going to be able to obtain a career or to get that investment from a company to buy into them in order to have that lifetime worth of income to pay back for what they spent so much time on. Too many people obtaining degrees has decreased the value of the bachelor's degree. Now this one I kind of beg to differ. Yes, there is information saying that it kind of devalues the bachelor's degree, that so many people have them nowadays that it's not worth as much. But I do definitely agree that at the time that you have everybody going back to get a college education and get a bachelor's degree, it does make it harder because you have a higher population that is able to obtain the same job that you could. And so you have to reach for that next level to make yourself look more significant and more different and stand out against the others. And so now let's move on to putting this to the short-term solutions. And so in this, we talked about the two main short-term solutions that I had found when I was doing studies was putting a stop to runaway costs on textbooks. Currently, One of the short-term solutions would be to make professors aware of increasing costs on textbooks so they can choose more cautiously. So in July of this year, provisions from the Higher Education Opportunity Act took effect, requiring publishers to disclose textbooks prices to professors during the market process. As of this fall, more than 15,000 colleges offer books for rent. More than 7,000 common titles are available as ebooks, and now e-reading devices like Apple iPads and Amazon Kindles offer a convenient, portable way for students to read and store digital books. So that was one of the main things that they have put in place in order to help cut costs in a way. And currently it's not affecting the college tuition, but it is one of the costs that add up that make it so hard for people to afford college education. The second thing would be exploring different types of non-traditional education programs. And so what I found with this is that there are several opportunities that are being opened, such as a program called Praxis, which allows students between the ages of 18 and 25 to join a 10-month online course and internship. So like curriculums cover economics, history, entrepreneurship, technology, and also put students into a paying internship. So when new programs like this arise, it makes it so much easier for people who are not the traditional college student to still put themselves into a program, a short-term program that is more probably financially flexible with their budget and lifestyle, I'm assuming, if they're having to work full-time somewhere else in order to meet these goals, but they'll still obtain pay during this because the internships are actually paying them during the time that they're working there. And then that almost seals the deal majority of the time for letting them have a job thereafter if they've already been putting in time during their internship and getting paid for this. So programs like this are very beneficial for those, and it seems that the studies show that there are quite a bit more of these programs coming open. So let's move on to long-term solutions that I found. Let's see here. Financial planning, saving, and investing is the way to go. That was one of the biggest things, of course, that you could do in order to prepare for the future. So say for my 4-year-old son, there were two big opportunities that I looked at when I found it's called a 529 college plan or a Coverdell education savings account. These are some of the things that families can take advantage of in order to invest for their children or families for in the future for their education. Let's see here. These accounts are smart to invest in because they are a tax-favored investment account designed to help cover any qualified educational expense, including, for example, the costs of private and secondary schools. So that was a big thing. And then the second one was the government proposed to keep the interest rates lower for a longer period of time. So in the studies I found, for a time period, economists in our government had debated the interest rates for the Stafford student loan debt and put freeze on movement into a higher level for a year. In July of this year, the freeze is expiring, so that leaves Congress at another time of debate. So one solution that they have come up with is to leave the percentage rate at 3.4% for a longer period of time to allow students to avoid such a large debt. Obama has also proposed that the percentage be tied to the market to allow for lower rates and fluctuations, but to also include a cap to where it could not grow too high with inflation rates as they change. So those were the two main things that I found for the long-term goals. Overall, the conclusion, I feel that the education does lead to a better future, and that, I mean, this nice little, even if it ends badly, it's worth it. If it made you feel something, it taught you something. And so those are my references. And overall, I feel that investing in education is worth the cost, and that if we as parents choose to invest wisely, then we can prepare for when it's our children's time. If we plan to provide support financially, then then they will more than likely be successful and motivated to further their education, which in return helps the communities we live in and the overall economy for consumer spending and savings. Thank you.